Race, a performance. Act 1, the Asian Australian. This is the role I should play. Open on a young Chinese girl born in a predominantly white town in sunny Queensland. Think Caloundra, a place her migrant parents moved to from Hong Kong in the 1970s and called a ghost town because it was empty and because the handful of people who lived there were white. The girl grows up divided between two cultures, eating rice one night, meat and 3 veg the next. She takes her shoes off at the door but wears hand-me-down Dunlops at touch footy. She receives red packets on Chinese New Year but sneaks sips of goon from the cask on Christmas Day. Her parents speak to her in Cantonese and she responds in English. She's Australian because she knows no different. What she doesn't realise is that what is different is her. People explain. Her nose is flat like a wombat's snout. That's why her glasses keep sliding down. When they find out that she has a Chinese name, they mispronounce it on purpose, testing the words like a bad taste on their tongue. Strangers yell at her from cars to go back to where she came from. Budrum, she thinks. Drunken men break into her yard from the hotel across the road and call her and her siblings fucking Asian cunts as they play Monopoly in the living room. Women at the pharmacy refuse to tell her mother the price of cosmetics because they don't think she can afford them. People are curious about her, but the question is always the same. Where are you from? No, but where are you really from? It's the soundtrack to her childhood. They hate her. They're scared of her. Her neighbours stake One Nation placards on their front lawns and close their doors. She tries to be more Australian, but isn't entirely sure what that means because isn't she Australian too? So she lays on an ochre accent. She tries gaining weight. She clamps a laundry peg to her nose to make it pointier. She tries getting sunburnt but just tans instead. She becomes the best at English in her grade. None of it is enough. Act 2, the exotic whore. This is the role I'm cast in. Lights up on the girl in her 20s. She spent her adolescence caring less, hanging out with her white friends, accepting racism because that's just a part of being a coloured person in Australia. You either take it in your stride or you drown. But now that she's an adult, she's angrier, yet somehow more lost. First people hated her, but now they want to fuck her too. They lust after what she represents. Exoticism, servitude and submission. They want the girl in the hot Asian chick's newspaper ad. They want the girl in the Japanese schoolgirl category in new porn. They want the girl who will give them a happy ending. A man knocks on her front door one night while she's eating dinner and asks if he's got the right address for the Asian massage parlour. She looks at herself in her pyjamas holding a forkful of broccoli and shakes her head. A man won't stop staring at her in a cafe and she's unsurprised when his Asian girlfriend joins him from the bathroom. A man asks for Japanese erotica at the store where she's working and stares at her hungrily from across the counter. A man at a bar shows her his tattoos of a koi fish and Chinese characters on his shin, and she nods, feigning interest. A group of men catcall her on the street, assuming that she doesn't speak English, and she makes the scene so big that pedestrians stop and stare. Every time she enters a room, she counts how many people of colour there are. 1. It's her. When she was younger, she was embarrassed about being Chinese, but now she's ashamed of the white parts of herself. People tell her that she looks mixed race because of your big eyes, and she feels proud and then disgusted at herself for buying into Western beauty ideals. In an Asian grocery store, she pays wordlessly, humiliated that the shopkeepers know to speak English after taking one look at her. In Asian restaurants, she pointedly takes chopsticks over the optional knife and fork and speaks broken Cantonese to the waiters. She travels around Asia and feels physically safe for the first time in her life. But she doesn't speak the right languages. And she has different values, more westernized. She feels desperately sad occupying a nowhere space. She's breaking apart. Act 3, the white Australian. This is the role you play. Note, this is a small role as one actor can play all the following characters. Lights up on another older coloured person telling our heroine a joke. What's the difference between white people and yogurt? Yogurt has more culture. She counters, how are white people and yogurt the same? I have trouble stomaching both. Even though many white people are her friends, many of them are her mentors. Some of them have even been her lovers. They are kind people who mean well, but unknowingly play other roles too. Benevolent saviour. Uses their platform and privilege to throw people of colour a bone for the sake of diversity and authenticity. Coloniser. invades a safe space for people of colour and criticises or complains when these spaces exist, believes reverse racism is real. Thief works hard to promote the voices of marginalised and minority people, but actually uses their stories and bodies for profit because their entire team is comprised of white people. Actor culturally appropriates the traditional clothing of people of colour, either as a costume or because it's so beautiful and cultured and makes them feel like a global citizen after their one trip abroad where the locals were so kind to them. Example, your friend who wears cheongsams and chopsticks in her hair. Teacher speaks to people of colour in measured English, enunciating each word slowly and loudly as if they are stupid. Customer eats kebabs, buys paintings made by Aboriginal artists and hangs them in their giant houses built on stolen land. Gets pedicures done by Vietnamese women. Rides in cabs and Ubers driven by migrants. The customer is always right. Epilogue, the future. Lights up on our heroine's grave 150 years later. She's long dead and so is everyone else she knows. Nothing much really changed in her lifetime. It's the opening night of her play at a high school where a young woman of colour isn't the comic relief, or the sidekick, or the villain, or the sex worker in a white person's story. She's the star. Fade to black.